Hello everybody, Steve here, and today I wanted to share some thoughts, some ideas, some tips to help you get more clients from your website. Now, almost any business these days has a website, but very few small business people, coaches, consultants, independent professionals get many clients from their websites. And most people's first attempt at a website is what I call a kind of a passive site. It's a little more than an online brochure that kind of explains who you are and what you do, but it attracts very few people. In fact, if people aren't referred to you or hear of you some other way, they can't find your site. And in contrast, where I think you want to get to is what I call an active site, a website that is actively connecting you to hundreds, if not thousands, of potential clients every month. And the benefits of having an active site are really large, but it's not for everybody. I mean, realistically, it's going to take you between 5 and 15 hours to figure this stuff out. And you can get 19 out of 20 things right, but if you're missing that one, you're just not going to get a lot of business from it. So if you're serious about getting an active website, just know it's going to take you some time. You're going to have to reach out and get some help and read some things. But the payoff for doing that is huge. You know, they estimate that there's over 800 million people that speak English as a first or second language. And so you have an opportunity for very little cost to reach a vast market. And even though there's only a very, very small percentage of that population at any given day has a problem, is serious enough about solving that problem, that they're out there looking for a solution like you, that does translate into hundreds and hundreds of potential clients each month. And for some businesses and some people, that's thousands of potential clients a month coming to your site. So the payoff is really big. And you know, I know this can be done. I did it myself about 17, 18 years ago, and I've held the hand of hundreds of people who wanted to get it done and figured it out over the years. So if you're interested, you can too. But there's a couple of things that you really need to keep in mind when you're doing it. And the first thing to keep in mind is really the mindset of who you're marketing to. You're not really marketing to people who know you or understand your product and are ready to purchase it. You're marketing to people generally who don't know you, who may have never tried your product, who are still on the fence wondering whether they should try this or not, and really not ready to commit. So you need a website that is going to connect to whatever searches they're doing on the internet, that's going to be able to show up on the first page of Google results for those searches, that when people find your site, they're going to be engaged by it. They're going to see, I can learn something here, and read through it. And if you do all that right, and if you give them something that they can get started with, they can commit to, even though they're not ready to hire you or sign up for your newsletter yet, if you can give them something that starts a relationship, then you're going to be in a place where you get dozens and dozens and dozens of these potential clients almost ready to say yes to working with you, signing up, getting on your distribution list, and that begins a relationship which ultimately leads to a client. And it's a lovely position to be in, where, you know, over the months you accumulate these people that are interested in your product or service. They're learning more about it, they're learning more about you, and then down the road, 6 months, a year, 2 years, you've got thousands of them. And every time you send out something to them, a newsletter, a blog posting, they're reminded about you, they're thinking about these changes they want to make, and they're getting closer and closer to hire you. So it's a lovely way to market, but again, it's not for everybody. If you are one of the people that want to get more value out of your website, then there's a number of things that you've got to pay attention to. Keeping in mind that you're marketing to people that don't know you, aren't ready to say yes, just doing their homework, you've got to collect your thoughts and your arguments in some brevity. People do not want to read long blocks of text. They need to get a feeling in the top 6 inches, which I call above the fold on your website. They need to get a feeling in less than a second. Oh, this is what I'm looking for. Oh, he or she is talking about what I'm interested in. Oh, I can learn something here. So when you're designing your website, it's really important to know who your ideal clients are, your niche, to understand what their challenges are, to understand the outcomes they're looking for, to understand, what really alternatives they have, so that you can speak to them even when they're in a hurry and they're rushed and they're not ready to make a decision. So top 6 inches of your page is really important. You need a heading and subheadings that reflect back the very words and phrases that they're typing into Google that reassure them, oh, this might be something I'm interested in. If you do that right, if they see headings and subheadings in the images and the pictures there, reassure them, I can learn something here. This person is talking about what I'm interested in. Then you've got them for a couple of seconds. And they're going to quickly scan and ask, is this really for me? Can I learn something here? And so it's important that we collect our information to reassure those hurried potential clients and get them to slow down and kind of focus their attention on the conversation we want to have with them. And there's some really important parts of our conversation to get them to a place at the bottom of your page where they're ready to take a first step. They're ready to say yes to a free report, an article, a video, something that you're offering to them to kind of get them started, to start the relationship. So this type of marketing is relationship marketing. It should be done with full integrity, because people can tell. They can tell if you're trying to manipulate them. They can tell if you're trying to be someone you're not going to be, and it's just not going to work. So get clear on who your ideal client is. Understand their mindset and write to them and write about what they're interested in. And use your words sparingly in that they do not want to read a lot of text. If they see huge amounts of text that they can't scan through, they're going to click their mouse and they're going to be on to the next site. So headings and subheadings should reflect back the very words and phrases they're typing into Google. And there's ways that you can find out what that is, and I'll speak about that in a minute. You should have images there, certainly if you're a personal service, like a coach, a consultant, an independent professional. It's very reassuring for someone to see a picture of a human being there with some branding beneath it, perhaps some testimonials that give third-party validation. These are all things you can have down one of the columns. There's supporting documentation. But you want to focus their attention, and there's very predictable ways or eye patterns that people go through when they arrive at a site. They go across, they go down, they go back, and they're making their first decision. Can I learn something here? So good headings, subheadings, then perhaps a paragraph that talks about their challenges. That's what they're online for, the problems they're trying to solve. So if they can see a short paragraph that talks about, are you struggling with now some of these challenges, bullets. Bullets are like magnets to the eye because they allow us to get a lot of information without all the filler words. So you don't have to have bullets, but you do want to carefully think of the information you want them to see towards the top of your page that's going to reassure them. Oh, this person's talking about my problems. Okay, I'll give them another couple of seconds. So a paragraph that summarizes some of the biggest challenges, a paragraph that kind of introduces you. Now, many people think, well, I've got a page on my site all about me. Why should I put stuff on my homepage? Well, if you're Apple Computer or General Motors or you're some big company where everybody knows what your product is, you don't need to have information about you on your homepage. But if you're a small business or an independent professional, like a coach, consultant, independent professional, they don't have a clue who you are. And before they read more, they need to be reassured that you know what you're talking about, that you are qualified, that it's going to be worth their while to read what you have to say. So somewhere on our homepage we need to have a little bit that introduces you and really speaks to their thinking mind that wants to know you're well trained, you're experienced, you specialize in this, as well as their relationship mind, their feeling limbic mind that needs to get a feel for you. If they're going to take a little step, then you've got to reveal a little bit about who you are and why you're doing this, to give them a feel for whether it's a good fit for them. If you don't do that, they really don't know if they can trust you. So a short paragraph, you don't have a lot of space to do that. They don't want to read your life story. But you need to talk a little bit about who you are and what you're doing. You definitely want to consider having a paragraph that explains how you work with your clients. In the case of coaches, such as myself, most people have never tried a coach. They don't know what the heck it is. They come to do their research worrying, is this going to work? Am I making a mistake? How much is this going to cost? What do I do if I don't get value out of it? They've got lots of doubts and fears. So it's really important in the course of your website and certainly your homepage to give them a feel for how it works. You know, in terms of coaching, you know, give them or reassure them that this is something they should expect value out of every single session. It's something you can customize the support to meet their budget and their needs. And then go on to give them a feel for some of the typical outcomes that you help your clients achieve. That's what they're interested in. That's what you're trying to help them get a feel for, so they can picture, oh, this is easy, it can be customized, if I don't like it, I can quit at any time, and he or she's going to help me achieve this, 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 and this. Right? That's really important to get them wrapping their mind around what's possible with your product or your service. So let's say we've done all that right. We've got headings that are reassuring them, we're talking about what they're interested in, we've talked about their challenges, we've introduced ourselves, we've talked about how we work with them, we have supporting information that, perhaps little snippets of testimonials that give third-party validation, perhaps some logos for, that show your training or certification or whatever it is. If we've done all that well, then we're going to get a lot of people at the bottom of our page, but the mindset of those people is they're not ready to sign up for your newsletter or your blog or something because they just don't know you well enough yet. They're not ready to pick up the phone and hire you. Perhaps 98 or 99% of them aren't ready to make that commitment yet. So you want to think about what you can offer them at the bottom of the page to get them started, to get them learning, to get them progressing on whatever changes they want, that they can say yes to today. Now, that might just be a free report that summarizes or shares 3 tips, 5 tips, some of the important strategies that other people that have made this change have found very useful. It's got to be something legitimate. It's got to be something that they look at and say, damn, I haven't seen that before. That looks pretty good. Perhaps this would help me. And if you have an offer there for a free report, then you are going to get dozens and dozens of those people saying yes to that. And I've helped hundreds of people do this over the years. And depending on their business and how popular their site is, that can mean just a few people a month. But more often, it means dozens and dozens of people a month. Not ready to hire you, but ready to say yes to your free report. When they say yes to that free report, now they're on your mailing list. Now you've got their permission to send them information periodically, whether it's a newsletter or your blog or an email, that continues a conversation, that educates them, that shares information, that again brings them closer and closer to a place where they now know enough about you, they've now thought about the changes that they're ready to commit. So that is the goal on your homepage. There's dozens and dozens of ways you can do this. Personal colors, styles are all up to you. But you do want a site that looks professional. You do want a site that displays consistently whether you're being viewed on a Mac or a PC or a handheld device. And you want a site that doesn't have 1,000 errors in it that gets you penalized on the search engine. So typically it means you've got to approach a designer to help you with this. And there's a lot of designers out there, and when you have done your homework and you know who your market is and you've written all the text and you go to a designer for a quote with all of your ducks lined up, you get an affordable rate for your design. It's when you approach a designer when you don't know what the heck you're doing that you're going to pay a lot more money, because the designer has to factor in, oh my gosh, you got to hold this person's hand forever while they figure out what the heck they want. So get a couple of quotes from a designer, but for an individual, independent professional, it's really common to you can get a really good looking site between $1,500 and $2,000 that does that. And if you're willing to work with someone overseas, which has some definite drawbacks in terms of communication and quality control, you can get a good site for $500 that's professionally done. I know many small businesses today lean towards CMS sites, content management sites, which are like WordPress, one of the more popular around this self-employed professionals. That's great to get started, but when you get serious about your web marketing, get a good designer to look at what you're doing and make sure that it's displaying consistently. You don't have some glaring errors that are going to keep you on the sidelines and really prevent you from competing. Okay, so let's say you've written the great website, you've got the site designed and up. What else do you need to do? Well, there's more you got to do. You need to learn about keywords. And this is a big talk, but again, I'm just wanting to give you a feel for it today. Search engines basically just do two things well. They find out what your site is about, and then they ask, compared to all the other sites on this same topic, how popular, relevant, important is this site? So when you've got a relatively new site, guess what? Your page rank or your page popularity in the eyes of most of the search engines is going to be very, very low. So you can't compete for some of the bigger search phrases. You've got to find some search phrases where there's enough traffic, but not too much competition. It's a balancing act. And it's going to take you 2 or 4 hours to figure this stuff out, but fortunately there's some good tools out there. And so job one is first to get clear on, well, what the heck are my ideal clients typing into Google when they're getting ready to hire someone like me or buy my product? And you can get a start on that by asking some of your clients, what would you type into Google? But what we're looking for with our keywords is what I call focused keywords. In other words, keywords that your ideal clients are typing into the search engine when they're ready to hire you. Not when they're out there just reading articles and tips, but when they're getting ready to hire you. So for example, I'm a business coach, so I would be thinking about business coach, business coaching, business help, business support, business training, small business, etc., etc., etc. That'll get you started thinking about words and phrases your ideal clients would be typing into the internet. Now, Google has a huge system called Google AdWords, which they make a lot of money on selling ads on the internet. And I don't think most of you want to do that, because if you don't know what you're doing, you can go through a lot of money quickly. But they've got tools there. If you sign up for a Google AdWords account, if you go through their little wizard they take you through as you set up an account, all the way until they ask you to pay money, you'll eventually get through their wizard and then have access to their suite of tools. And one of their tools there is called the Google Keyword Planner. And the Google Keyword Planner is going to allow you to type in some of these words and phrases like business coach, small business coach, etc. and see how many searches a month are there. Now, you're going to quickly see that there are some words and phrases you're thinking about where there's no searches. And there's a lot where there's tens of thousands of searches. And if you're a relatively new site, my advice to you is to look for focused keywords, words where it indicates that they're ready to hire you, like business coach, business help, business support. Between a volume of like 30 and maybe 2,500 searches a month, because your site's new, you're not going to be able to compete against some of the well-established sites. So we want to go in that kind of comfort zone between like 30 searches and like 2,500 searches a month. The more the better, but start looking there and identifying focused keywords. Once you've got a list of, a dozen or a couple of dozen of words and phrases, and you've got their search volume, the next step you've got to do is say, okay, but in each one of these words, can I compete? And the way you check that out is you take that word or phrase, you put it into Google, and then you look at the results that come up. In other words, you look at all of the websites that are coming up on the first page of Google results. And your goal is to find out what's the page rank or what's the page popularity for each of these sites. If you've got an existing site, you just go to Google and you can find a free tool, Google PageRank tool, and you can plug your URL into it and it'll tell you what your PageRank is. But if you haven't done any web marketing and you're new to the internet, I can tell you your PageRank is 0 out of 10 because you haven't known what you're doing. So for those of you that have been around for a bit, maybe your PageRank is 2 out of 10 or 3 out of 10. By the time you get a 3 out of 10, you're doing better than about 90% of your competitors. So, it might not sound like much, but for a small business, that's doing pretty darn well. So your job then is to look at each of these keywords and phrases and see what the PageRank is for all of the sites that are coming up on the first page of Google results. Now typically when you do that, you're going to find that there are a number of sites that have been around for 10 years that have a higher PageRank than you do. You're going to find 4s and 3s and 2s, and that's really predictable. But what you're looking for is to make sure that whatever keyword you want to get serious on, that your site, whatever its PageRank is, PageRank 0, 1, 2, 3, that you can come up there, that you're going to be able to show. And most of the keywords you're going to check out for a new site, you're not going to be able to compete. Now there's an exception to that. Google gives high preference to local sites. So if somebody's searching for you locally, you can possibly come up for those more popular keywords. But generally, you've got to go after keywords and phrases that have less search volume and less competition. Now, I've been through this a couple 100 times and I've yet to find a keyword where, or been in a situation helping somebody where they couldn't find keywords that their site would come up on. So even though, the internet's been around for 20 odd years, there's still lots of opportunity because most people don't really do this. And you will be able to find words that your site comes up, and you're going to be able to prove this to yourself. You don't have to take my word or anybody else's word. You can watch the traffic to your site. You can find out what search words and phrases they're using, and you can tweak your site. So let's say you've done all this and launched your site. Is that enough to get your clients? Well, it's about, 90% of the way there, perhaps 99% of the way. You're clearing who you're marketing to, you've got a site targeting their interest, you've made them an offer that a lot of them are going to say, gee, that sounds interesting, I'll start with that. You're connecting to, dozens and dozens of them a month. Is that enough? And you're almost there. The other thing that you've got to be aware of is anything that you do on the internet takes a little while to work through the system. As the search engines get smarter and more smarter and adapt more to social media, the lag time gets shorter and shorter. So sometimes you can make a change to your site and you can see the results instantly, but more often it is going to take you a little while. And what is also going to take you a while is raising your page popularity. As I mentioned, every site is evaluated to find out how relevant this site is to the chosen keywords or topic. And when you're starting out, you got a pretty low page rank. So you want to, over time, be active online, sharing your information, sharing good content, putting posts on forums or social media, sharing your newsletters broadly, getting listings on directories, so that the search engines see people talking about your site or see references to your site in various places. And the more places they see that, particularly when they see you in a diversity of sites, government sites, education sites, private sites, social media, the more that they see people talking about you or stumble into links back to your site, that's a signal to them, gee, this site must have good content, and they begin to raise your page rank. So, as you can see, it's kind of an involved topic, and I don't want to get into too much of the nitty-gritty to scare you off, but what I can tell you, if you do want more clients, you can do this. It's, 5 hours, 10 hours, 15 hours. It's kind of in that ballpark to figure this stuff out. but the payoff can be huge. So hopefully that'll give you enough information to kind of give you a feel whether this is right for you and prevent you from being oversold stuff. There's a lot of companies out there that want to sell you huge packages to guarantee massive traffic to your sites for very little, time or money. And unfortunately, very few of those things you're going to be satisfied with, because oftentimes what they most often do is they take your money, $200, $300, $500 a month, and they just set up a Google pay-per-click ad with half the money and pocket the rest. So they can guarantee traffic, but it's traffic that if you were so inclined to do the ads yourself, you could just sign up for Google AdWords. But as I mentioned, that doesn't work well for most small businesses because the ads are very small and there's a lot of competition, and most small businesses just don't have the staying power to figure it all out until it does become a paying proposition for them. So bottom line is you can do this, and here are some tips to help you get started. At the trailing credits of this video, I'll leave my website, and there's a page on my website, resources for other coaches, that is going to share some other information and articles that is going to help you learn more about this stuff if you're so inclined. So good luck, and I hope this helps you connect to many more of your ideal clients.